Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Georgia Recruiting Rumors versus Facts here on the UGA Sports YouTube channel. Jed, what do you think about our new setup here? It's looking pretty good,
Good.
right?
Looking real good.
Absolutely. Trying to bring the production quality here for the loyal members of the UGAsports.com vault who produce questions, submit questions to us each week, and we have a ton of them to get through. We want to right off the bat apologize for on Monday having to postpone our show. My fault. I had some unforeseen travel issues there. Wasn't able to make it back in time. Also, on Monday wouldn't have been great timing anyways with Dylan Bell committing at 8 o'clock. So there was a lot going on Monday and decided to push it to Wednesday. But so thankful that everyone is kind of back at it and here with us on this new episode 4 now of Rumors versus Facts on UGA Sports. And Jed, as I just mentioned, a lot has been going on, whether it's Dylan Bell committing, we had the cookout, Griffin Scroggs flipping from Georgia Tech to Georgia. A lot going on right now in the world of Georgia recruiting.
Absolutely. It's one of those things. We knew Dylan Bell was coming, and he'd announced the time and all that kind of stuff. And then Griffin Scroggs last night we'd heard rumblings that he could be flipping, it could be coming soon, but we didn't know exactly a time. So we committed, well, it was about maybe 8 o'clock or so last night, 7:30. So we kind of got in scramble mode there. And then, this morning there was the preferred walk-on running back kid committed, which kind of sent us in scramble mode again. So been a chaotic last few days, especially going back to the cookout and all that stuff. But that's why we love recruiting, right?
Absolutely. And we'll talk about a little bit about that. If you didn't catch all the content today, we had some insider notes from the cookout or the barbecue, whatever you want to call it, because technically it was indoors. That was pointed out to me earlier today. So it's hard to call it a cookout when it's indoors. But hey, that's what it was referred to me as early on in the process. Whether it's those, whether it's the 3-2-1 that Jed put out today, which is just a fantastic piece that I want you to go make sure you read. If you aren't already a member of UGAsports.com, you can see crawling down there at the bottom, you can use the promo code DOGS2021 and get the first year. You pay just $20.21 for your first year of access. Such a great deal. So make sure you take advantage of that promo code, and we'd love to have you on here because our loyal Georgia UGA Sports members on the vault are the ones that give us our questions, and we're going to go ahead and get into those right here in a minute. But first, we're going to put a comment up here. Mr. Brett Reimer says 3-2-1 was a great read, Jed. So there's someone who was on there today reading the site. So Jed appreciates that, right, Jed?
Yeah, appreciate it. That's one of those things. Rowdy came out with that idea last night, and I was like, it's some big shoes to fill when the boss man asks you to write a 3-2-1 column. But I thought it turned out pretty good. I got some Seinfeld references in there, which is always good. Got to put some creative gifts in there. So all in all, it was a fun time. So I'm glad y'all liked it.
Absolutely. And before we get on to our first question here, I'm sure we'll receive several comments about our choice of shirt colors today. I'm wearing a nice green and Jed going with the blue over there. So no Georgia colors involved here. So I'm sure we'll get some comments on that. But hey, you got to love it, right? So we're going to go, Jed, kick it off with a frequent questioner here on the show, Mr. Scuffletown Dog. So go ahead, Jed, take that one away for us.
Yeah, would want to get in a fight with this guy. He says, do you think that Cole Speer has a committable offer, and would Georgia take Speer, Luther Burden, and Andre Green Jr.?
Okay, Jed, I'll let you handle the first part of that question, and I'll go with the second part.
Yeah, so I caught up with Cole Speer yesterday, I believe, and I asked him straight out. I was like, "Look, did Kirby Smart? Is it a committable offer?" And he said, "Yes." Kirby Smart told him, think about it, get back to him whenever. But bottom line, yes, it is a committable offer for Cole Speer right now. The coaches obviously have liked everything about him. He told me, he ran the already famous 4.38 at the Appalachian State camp back in June. And a few days later, he got a text from Todd Monken saying, "Hey, we want you in Athens for a private workout." So the interest has been building from there over the past, I guess, month and a half or so. And, as it stands right now, he's got a committable offer on the table.
Well, and when it comes to who Georgia would take, they're pretty wide open at wide receiver. Another couple of spots there to fill. So I don't know that Georgia would necessarily take three more receivers, but I don't think they're going to be put in that position because I don't think you're going to get a Luther Burden and an Andre Green. It's probably more of an either or situation there. They're going to keep trying very hard to flip Luther Burden, but everybody needs to remember Luther Burden is still committed to Oklahoma. A lot of times I think that gets lost in the thing that just because he's talking to Georgia, he's talking to Missouri, he visited Missouri, he's still yet to decommit from Oklahoma. And until that happens, it's hard to really take that next step and be more serious about the recruitment, even though Georgia's had him on campus and things like that. And then, of course, compare that to a guy like Jaheim Singletary, who's actually decommitted now from Ohio State. So you can kind of begin to think about those things and make sure that, you're trying to get in good shape with that recruitment process. But I don't think they're going to be in position to have to take three of them. So let's go ahead and hit our next question here. This is from, I'll do this one, Jed. You can grab the next one. Cajun Dog. Who are the next two commitments, and do you expect any before the end of August? Wild guesses are okay. Okay, so Jed, anybody jump to mind right off the bat in terms of commitments?
If we're going wild guesses, I say Georgia lands Luther Burden. No, I'm just kidding. We've
trying to give the people what they want.
I mean, we've talked about this before. There's a couple guys that are planning to silently commit. Jake Pope's one of those. CJ Madden's one of those. And there are guys that we don't know about that could silently commit before. So
allegedly silently committing.
Exactly. So there's you never really know. I know Jacob Hood. Yeah, he has told me that he's planning late August, early September. So that could be before the end of August. I know there's a couple guys that are kind of in, commitment could come at any time right now, and Oscar Delp's one of those. So wild guesses, I'm gonna shrug my shoulders and say I don't really know. I'm betting there have been some silent commitments, either discussed on the table, whatever, but it's too early to say, whether they'll be public. We'll say too early to say whether they'll be public by the time Georgia kicks off in Charlotte.
And it's interesting that you say that about the silent commitments, because we're going to have a question about that coming up here later in the show. And I have maybe a little bit different perspective. And hey, that's okay, folks. Jed and I don't have to think the exact same way on stuff. You guys don't have to think the exact same way that we think on stuff. And I'm actually sharing the feed out on Facebook right now. That's why I was having to look down right there. But I would say the next two, if I just had to say real quickly who the next two commitments are, I'm going to say Neo Avery on Friday. And then I'm going to say, probably CJ Madden. I think CJ Madden has a chance. He's just really, really flirting with Georgia a lot. I know he's going to break a top 5 out and all that kind of stuff in a couple of days, but I just think he's going to end up in Georgia sooner rather than later. All right, Jed, read that next one off for us.
We got Dabfa226. I don't have a cute joke for that one, but I like the name anyway. It says, if you had to make a prediction today, do you think we'll land one of the big 3 defensive tackles?
What's your prediction, Jed?
So, assuming this is Shaw, Nolan, and Bear Alexander, I think it's hard because it doesn't seem like Georgia has momentum right now with any one of those 3, to be perfectly honest. I know Shaw, it's kind of a Georgia. It seems to mainly be between Georgia, North Carolina, and Clemson. Depending on who you ask, it might be between Georgia, North Carolina, Clemson, whatever. But he didn't come back for the scavenger hunt. He has been back in July. Walter Nolan came back for the scavenger hunt. Seemed like Georgia might have been trending there, but he went to A&M this past weekend. And then Bear Alexander was on campus this past weekend, but he obviously decommitted a month ago. So it's hard to say Georgia has any momentum there when a month and a half ago he was part of the class. So I mean, if you told me to, pick yes or no on the spot right now, I would have to say no, just because I can't pick out one of those guys that I feel confident in saying, yes, they'll be a part of the class. Is it possible? Sure. Could Georgia make a charge at Shaw, Nolan? Could Bear Alexander end up part of the class? Absolutely. But right now, I can't pick out one of those guys that, is more likely than not. So I would have to say no, they don't get any of the three right now.
Yeah, my answer is no. I don't think Georgia gets any of them as it stands today. Barry Alexander is definitely the best shot of the three as things are going right now. But as we put today in the top five unpredictable recruitments of the class of 2022, definitely Walter Nolan is one of those, and that one's going to change multiple times. Travis Shaw is an unpredictable one as well. So we will see how it turns out. Barry Alexander's unpredictable. I mean, there's all three of those guys are so hard to read, but I don't give Georgia the chance right now of getting those guys as it stands. DeBusk, the man DeBusk over on the vault. Can you please provide context to the Singletary recruitment with our staff? That's the first question. So I'll say that Todd Hartley had been from the beginning kind of recruiting Jaheim Singletary. For a long time, Todd Hartley he's got a lot of connections down there in the Florida area. He spent time down there with Mark Richt at Miami, things like that. So Todd Hartley's close with Singletary. Since then, the Georgia defensive staff has kind of taken over, but they have been very consistent in the recruitment of Jaheim Singletary, even since him committing to Ohio State. And then the next question he had was, if you could only take one player, who would you rather have, Singletary or Bowie? Jed, if you could take one, Singletary or Bowie, who would you take out of those two?
I mean, I think
if you were making the decision.
You got to go Singletary, right? I mean, he's the number one corner in the country for a reason. I feel like his ceiling is higher than maybe Deion Bowie's is. And if you get a guy like that to pair with Marquise Groves-Killebrew and Kamari Wilson, I mean, that's a really strong secondary class. And not to say that, if you switch out Singletary and Bowie, it wouldn't be a strong class, but I think Singletary would be, just a huge capper to, say Kamari Wilson commits ahead of him, he would be the capper to a great secondary class.
Absolutely. And I think in terms of that, you've got two tremendous athletes, but I just look at factors like Deion Bowie has already had a, catastrophic knee injury that he's had to recover from, an ACL tear. So that just, that alone gives me the leg up. If I can get Jaheim Singletary, I'm taking Jaheim Singletary. So DeBusk had two of those questions, and DeBusk also loaded up two more. So round two for DeBusk here. DeBusk really killing it with the questions. Can you compare Stockton to Vandergriff and explain why Stockton has been seen dropping in ranking since he committed to us? Okay, so one thing about Gunner is Gunner Stockton does not do a whole lot of the camp circuit and things like that. He's more into Rabin County and trying to win that state championship. So he maybe wasn't in front of a lot of these talent evaluators and the people that are really responsible for the star rankings and the ratings and all that kind of stuff. That may be why he's dropping. I'll let Jed answer the second question you get to in terms of who flies up the board connected to UGA, committed or not. But I'm going to compare Gunner and Brock real quick. They are both quarterbacks who ran to have success in high school. Gunner does run. That's part of his game. However, they are much different types of runners. When you look at Brock Vandegrift, he is someone who is very elusive, has more deceptive speed than you would think, and he can really hurt you with his legs in terms of at the college level. At the high school level, he was great, of course. Gunner's great at the high school level in terms of running, but he is more of a Tim Tebow type, going to run you over, plotting, big, thick quarterback. That's how he kind of does things. Both of them have rocket arms. They have really strong arms that Georgia is going to be able to make every throw on the field as long as one of those two is at quarterback in the future. They will be able to get the ball down the field. But I think the difference is the type of runners that they are. Now, Jed, the second part of that question from DeBus was, of any player connected to UGA, committed or not, who flies up the ranks? Who flies up the rankings? Who do you think is a high riser for Georgia, whether they're connected to Georgia or committed to Georgia right now?
I think you got to look at Dylan Bell. Honestly, I had someone on the board. I'm sorry, I forget who it was, but someone asked me, what did I think of Dylan Bell on film? And admittedly, I hadn't watched any of his film before, so I pulled up his huddle, watched his film, and he looks a lot better than a 3-star ranking would indicate. He's got good hands. He catches the ball away from his body. he was used as a wildcat quarterback a lot. He's got speed. So I think, him getting more game film this fall, he's going to shoot up to a 4-star, I think. I thought about putting CJ Madden in here, and he's a very good player, but at least from what I saw at Cedar Grove at 7-on-7 camps I've been to, they were using him as like an inside linebacker, and which, on the one hand, speaks to his athleticism and everything, but I don't know if he would rise in the rankings as an edge rusher if he's being used as an inside linebacker at Cedar Grove. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know who's watching the film and who's going to end up being the ones that it's the higher ups at Rivals that are going to do all that. But I will stand on the table and tell you right now that CJ Madden is a eventual game changer for some team in the SEC. The guy has a wingspan of well over 80 inches, and he is bigger than Azeez Ojulari. Right now, today, as entering his senior year of high school, he's bigger than Azeez Ojulari was at the NFL Combine this spring, and he's very athletic. Has a great punch when he comes across would-be blockers. I mean, he's able to rock guys' heads back and separate real easily, and he's just got great length. I think CJ Madden. That's why Georgia has kind of fallen in love with him. Want to remind you guys. All these guys that are submitting questions right now, you can get your questions answered if you're a member of the Vault. We post a thread over there before every show. Actually, I had 2 this week because we tried twice to get the show off the ground. So you can use promo code DOGS2021 if you're not already a member of UJSports.com and get your first year for just the low price of $20.21. Jed, I mean, that's like going to Chick-fil-A like twice,
Yeah. You could go get, a large pizza and an order of breadsticks from an average fast or pizza chain and be satisfied for an hour, or you could spend $20, get a year subscription to UGA Sports and be satisfied every single day. It seems easy to me, but I don't know.
Absolutely. So here we go. We got Dog B. Who is the highest rated wide receiver that we have a great chance at landing within the next couple of months? So within the next couple of months, who is the highest rated wide receiver that Georgia? I mean, right now, like we said, I don't really want to put any stock into saying, okay, they got a real great shot at landing Luther Burden, because Luther Burden, until he decommits from Oklahoma, I'm not going to consider it a legitimate threat. Andre Green, I think it's kind of a Clemson Georgia deal, but Clemson is out ahead for him. Shaz Preston is a guy that I really think Georgia has a better shot with than most people would think. Shaz is out of Louisiana. A lot of people consider him, he's going to go to LSU. Well, Alabama's working him really hard, but I know Shaz is going to end up making a return to Athens this fall for an official visit. So definitely want to see what happens with Shaz Preston. Jed, anybody that comes to mind of the highest rated wide receiver that have a great shot at landing in the next couple of months? Jaden Gibson. Jaden Gibson comes to mind.
Jaden Gibson is up there. Amari Kelly is another guy that Georgia's A, in the running for, and B, he's a guy that's told me when I caught up with him a couple of weeks ago, he was hoping to decide maybe before the high school season really gets rolling. I'm not married to that idea, but it's possible. So I don't think Georgia's necessarily in the lead or one of the front runners there. They're certainly in the mix. But that's another guy. But like you said, Luther Burden seems like, if we're talking about top of the line, instant walk in day one difference maker, I think Luther Burden's that guy, just because there's been so much interest between him and Georgia, over the past few weeks or so. But again, like you said earlier, he's got to decommit from Oklahoma first.
Has to decommit first.
So
it's like it's like somebody's waiting on somebody to get divorced or something. I mean, I don't know what's going. I mean, that's got to be done with before Georgia can have that seriously in their mind. So here we go. Let's go with a quick one here. I can answer this one in 2 seconds. Still feel good on Delp? Yep. Oscar Delp, I think, will be a Georgia Bulldog. Move on. Cushman, without disclosing names, could you be able to say how many silent recruits the Dogs have and how many silent recruits, given a clue, to whom they might commit to? I don't know. That question so how many silent commits is kind of what we're going to go with on this question. Just kind of copy and pasted that one over. So you got a little jumbled there, but here's my view on silent commitments. They may happen. They may be out there. I don't take any stock in a silent commitment. I've just learned that it matters none, because Jake Pope was, in our insider notes today over at UGAsports.com, he was supposed to have a silent commitment somewhere in this month or the last month, in the month of July. I don't think that's happened. I think those things can change. And I think, all it is a 16, 17, 18-year-old young man telling you, oh, well, I'm going to do something. Mm-hmm. Well, Jed, how comfortable do you feel with that? If they're, especially if they're not willing to put it out publicly.
Yeah, it's not something. I mean, it's obviously something that is worth taking some stock in, just because. I mean, it's not something it's commitments. Period aren't set in stone, let alone silent commitments. So it's something that, I mean, you almost look at it as, silent commits equal a kid saying that a certain school's the leader. That's what it is right now.
It's like a favorite.
Yeah, I mean, it's something like, 'cause like you said, if he's not going public with it, it's just a leader right now to me. I haven't been doing this long, but I do know that. So it's one of those things where it's worth paying attention to. It's worth monitoring, all that kind of stuff. It's certainly worth reporting, but it's not quite on the level of seriousness maybe that a verbal commitment or a public commitment would be.
Absolutely. And I when it comes to that, to answer the question, there may be 2 or 3 when you come with he said no disclosing name. There's 2 or 3 that we've heard at UGAsports.com that could be a silent commitment, could have already give Georgia kind of the wink and nod that, hey, we're coming over there. But that's, like I said, I just really wait for those things to go public, because that is when you really can take stock in those. And then here we go. Jay Doggy, who is the must-have / can't miss recruit for the 2022 cycle? So if there's one can't miss prospect that Georgia has to have in the class of 2022, I think, first of all, when you look at this, you need to identify, okay, what are the needs? What are the needs? Defensive tackle is a need. You have Jordan Davis, Julian Rochester, which I know some people are like, is he really going to leave? Because he's been there for like 10 years. Julian Rochester, and then also Devontae Wyatt, that are all 3 going to be leaving this program after this year. Jordan Davis going to the pros, the other 2 out of eligibility. So, you're going to need to replace 3 defensive tackles. Edge rushers, Nolan Smith and Adam Anderson, can be going to the pros with good years. And then also at the safety position, you have a lot of guys who are technically seniors. They could come back, because everybody has that extra year of eligibility now, thanks to the COVID year, stuff like that. But most likely guys like Chris Smith, Latavius Bernee, William Poole, all those guys that are safeties on Georgia's roster, Georgia's going to need to replace those bodies. So I am going to go with the one that I think would make the most impact immediately, and I think that's Kamari Wilson. I think at that safety position, that Kamari Wilson is the can't miss, the must-have prospect that Georgia needs going forward to fortify the safety kind of rotation that they're going to have. You got David Daniel, who's there this year, true freshman, that's looking to break in. You have Lewis Seen, who may, if he had a good year, he could end up going pro, Jed. So that it's very important to have a true leader back there and a guy who can really contribute both mentally and physically. And I think Kamari Wilson's that type of guy. Is there anybody else that jumps out to you as a can't miss prospect, somebody that Georgia must bring on in this class of 2022?
Well, we've talked about those defensive tackles a little bit. Like we said before, those are you would maybe classify those guys as must-have, but it doesn't necessarily look that good right now. I'm going to go with another guy from Philadelphia, Anai White. He's an outside linebacker, edge rusher. Denied Dennis Sutton appears to be off the table. Michael Williams is a potential flip candidate, but kind of like Luther Burden, he's committed to USC right now. So I think all the heat and focus at that position is going to be turned up on Anai White right now. He should be Georgia's #1 priority. He wanted to come last weekend for the cookout, had some transportation transportation issues, easy for me to say, and couldn't make it down. But I think he is Georgia's number one focus at that edge rusher position right now. And he's the guy, I think, because like I said, Nolan Smith, Adam Anderson, Robert Beal, I believe, is a senior. So there's going to be a lot of production gone from that pass rushing position. So Anai White is a good guy. Also, Julian Rochester's story. He's so old. I remember my first year covering the team. I was a young guy at the red and black, and we had the big before the bowl practice. We had, the freshmen came up for interviews the first time. One guy on one side of the room was future Indianapolis Colts starter Jacob Eason, and the guy on the other side of the room was 15th year senior Julian Rochester. So
yes,
that dude has been here a long time.
A long time. So those are all the questions that we had from the people on the vault this time around, but we also will answer questions that are submitted right now on YouTube. So if you have questions on YouTube, go ahead and throw them in. We're going to answer those. We got some time right now. So I'm going to hit one here. This is Georgia Slim over on YouTube. Have y'all heard about the kid out of Macon, Xavier Hardy, defensive end 2023? Yes, we have. And in fact, I spoke to Xavier at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge. Him and Dan Lanning have a very good relationship. He's a player that absolutely loved the University of Georgia. When he came up for his visit, he told me they are very much so right at the top of his list. So Xavier Hardy, definitely a name in that class of 2023 that everyone needs to keep a lookout for. In-state prospect there. This is DeBusk coming in on YouTube. Now, speaking of Bossman, Roddy needs to go on vacation from now till December. So I will say, being newer here to this environment, I don't know all the ins and outs, but I do know, Jed, that apparently when Roddy goes on vacation, good things seem to happen for the University of Georgia in the world of recruiting.
I'm so frustrated with myself because I meant to put that as my prediction at the end of the 3-2-1 today, that the next big commitment is going to be when Roddy's out of town, and it totally slipped my mind. But yeah, that's one of those things that happen. I'm surprised, they didn't land Luther Burden or something while we took that Vegas trip a couple of weeks ago. So that's how the universe works. That's how it goes. So
y'all want anything that can go wrong will go. Murphy's Law, right?
Yeah. If y'all want to start a GoFundMe for Roddy and key lime pie donations or
you can send Roddy to Key West from now till December. If you just go ahead, throw in like super chats and stickers and all that here on YouTube, all that kind of stuff, that'd be great. We can get that done for Roddy. Judah Chosen Seed says, I like Sean Washington, just wish he was a little more athletic. I think that people need to remember, if you're watching any film from last year on Sean Washington, he was injured. Also had some stuff related to COVID going on there too. So it was not a banner year for him his junior year. I think that's why a lot of people see that 3-star rating for Sean Washington. They're like, oh, well, what's going on there? I can tell you this, Georgia is very serious about Sean Washington, or he would have not have been at the cookout weekend. Anybody who was there, Jed, at that cookout weekend is under serious consideration from Georgia. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, well, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Our preferred walk-on running back, Jacob Hardy. He told me just a minute ago he was at the cookout this weekend, and that's a kid who's obviously not getting a scholarship offer, but the coaches think enough of him to have him there. So to your point, anyone who was there is under consideration by the coaching staff very seriously. So
and to be a part of the Georgia Bulldog team in some way, form, or fashion. I'll say this about Sean Washington. He thinks enough about Georgia and his visit and his interaction with Trey Scott and Kirby Smart and Cortez Hankton, also a Louisiana native, enough that Sean Washington is going to be making the trip from New Orleans to Charlotte on September 4th to see Clemson and Georgia play. And you take that for what it's worth on how important it is to him to see them play. Chuck Ward says Julian Rochester sat beside Charlie Trippy in classes. That has not been confirmed yet, but I have heard some rumors. I don't know. Julian Rochester has been around Georgia a long time. Used to have a guy that played baseball with my brother, and his dad like swears that he outran Herschel Walker in a race over there when he was a walk-on at Georgia. And I was like, okay, this is not adding up. But there's lots of tall legends with things out there. But Julian Rochester, he's probably been around 10 years, 15 years.
I remember more recent times. I had a cousin, the guy that married one of my cousins. He went to Georgia Southern, and one of his friends met us on a beach vacation one time, and he played football at Georgia Southern. And Southern played in Athens, I think 03 or 04, one of those years. And this guy was saying that, David Pollock's not that tough. I whipped him around all the time. And I was like, okay, well, that's why David Pollock was a first-round draft pick. And you're sitting here on the beach with us. So
absolutely. Lots of tall walking, tall talking, not enough tall walking that goes on sometimes. Yeah. DB Dog 7 on YouTube says, what position is UGA recruiting Neo Avery at? That would be tight end. Does he have the makeup to be an elite quarterback prospect, or will he end up at tight end? So I'm going to say he told me of his own mouth that Georgia's recruiting him as a tight end. He showed up, Jed, for his initial prospect camp in June, and Todd Monken had him, throwing with the quarterbacks, things like that. About midway through the workout, Todd Hartley asked him to go over and work with the receivers and tight ends. He ran some routes, and they basically come up to him, and the quote that Neo Avery gave me from Hartley was, they said, "We think you could be a good college quarterback. We think you could be an NFL tight end." So that's apparently convincing enough to get him back for another visit to Georgia at the cookout. But Jed, 6'6", 235, he looks like a formidable tight end at the next level.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. You get a guy on campus, and who knows, that could be a guy who, it's easy when you get a quarterback that big, and there's obviously a quarterback in Jacksonville right now who's a quarterback turned tight end. And it's one of those things, maybe there could be some sort of special package, involving that kind of skill set down the line. There's just so many things you can do in modern college football with offenses and everything that you can never have too many versatile players with, like crossing over skill sets. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see how Todd Monken utilizes him if he commits to Georgia, which his commitment is Friday at noon, right?
It's sometime Friday in the it's either noon or 2:00. I can't remember. Sometime around there. We'll take another couple questions, guys. So if you want to send them in here on YouTube, make sure to get them in. You'll have to submit them through the YouTube comments right now. Donta Green, will Georgia get Dayon Bowie back? So Jed, I think right now you have Georgia sitting there with Marquise Groves Killebrew as a corner, Malachi Starks, who's going to play a safety star type role. You've heard from Malachi that he says they'll give him a look at wide receiver. That's said a lot when it comes to, these big profile recruits. I don't know. That remains to be seen. I'm sure he'll get a couple of reps. He's a phenomenal athlete, but I do think defense is his future. So we got Marquise Groves Killebrew for Georgia at corner, Malachi Starks in this class at safety/star. And then you have Ja'Cory Thomas, who is a safety as well, but is versatile, could end up playing corner. I think Georgia's going to take at least 2 more DBs in this class. We said Kamari Wilson is that can't miss one at safety. And then the question is, do they just go get another corner because they're pretty stocked up at corner right now? Do they go get Dayon Bowie? Do they go get a Jake Pope, who's more of a safety type player? That really remains to be the question. What do you think, Jed? Do you think Dayon Bowie ends up back in the class of 2022 for Georgia?
It's hard to say. This is such a cop out, but it's kind of the flip of Luther Burden. It's hard to say. It's one of those things where you say, okay, do you have Georgia or the field? And with there's so many schools involved, it's easier to say the field. Obviously, he was back in Athens this past weekend, so that certainly makes it seem like Georgia's getting some momentum back, a month or so after he decommitted. But I don't know. It's certainly possible. I don't know that I'd go as far as saying it's probable at the moment, but if he ends up back in the class, I certainly would not be shocked.
I think that if I had to predict 2 defensive backs to end up in Georgia's class right now, not putting in like future cast or anything, except I already have put in a future cast for Kamari Wilson. I think he will end up at Georgia, but not putting in future cast, things like that. What I'm saying is I think Kamari Wilson and Deion Bowie end up in this class. I think I like the chances of Deion Bowie ended up in this class more than Jaheim Singletary. I think Jaheim Singletary, Miami is going to be a big factor there. Ohio State's going to fight like crazy to get him back as well. And then Jake Pope could be that third one if Georgia takes 3 more. If they take 3 instead of 2, Jake Pope could very well be a part of that. Alabama fighting hard there as well, but he's nowhere near a decision from what I gather. Last one here from Donda. Do you think Georgia has a top 5 finish in recruiting? My answer is yes, because that's all Kirby Smart's done. He's never had a class that's really finished outside of that. So I'm going to give a yes to that. But Jed, anything we have coming up here I know you did the cheat sheet the other day. Anything coming up on the website that you want to give folks a heads up on that they could use that promo code scrolling down around the bottom right now, Dogs 2021 for a great deal? Anything coming up on the site?
Well, obviously we've got actual football coverage, Georgia football coverage starting on Friday. I've preseason interviews. I'm sure there's a Kirby press conference Friday and then some players, and also give Anthony Dasher and all those guys a read. As far as recruiting, we got high school football. We got scrimmages on Friday. We got Cedar Grove and Buford. We've got Rome and Kell, I believe.
Yeah, Rome and Kell.
So we're going to be kind of spread out all over the place, and that's going to be our Friday nights for the next few weeks. Is going to these games, watching these kids. Georgia kids considering Georgia, and talking to them, watching them play, and all that kind of stuff. So, and then once games get started, then we'll be catching up with kids on visits. I'm sure we'll be talking to those kids that make the trip to Charlotte for the Georgia Clemson game, and going from there. There'll be commits and all that kind of stuff. So $20 is too good of a deal to pass up on. That's all I can say.
Absolutely. And guys, thank you so much for joining us here on another episode of Georgia Recruiting Rumors versus Facts. And we will be live Monday at 8:15. And who knows? You always want to tune in because we could start having some surprise guests start popping in before too long. But thank you everybody for joining. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit notifications if you hadn't already. Like the video. That helps us out a lot. All 60-something people, whatever's in there right now, go ahead and hit that like button for us. And that helps out a lot. Leave comments. Appreciate everybody watching, and we'll catch you next time.